Are we live? Anna's going to tell me when we're live here.
Is it live?
Well, I'm on the channel.
So is everybody, give us some thumbs up if you can see us and if you can hear me, see me. There's us in the room, but you can't see them. Just me. Give me some thumbs up so it looks like everything's working. So welcome everybody to the 2019 series that we're doing with you guys, and I'm so excited to get started. We moved to a new studio. I'll tell you the whole story about that later. I'm tired, I'll just say that. But I'm really excited to get in and make some paper flowers. Excited to make paper flowers with you. So first of all, I'm gonna tell you, we have a few people out of the office, so we have a different staff here today. Anna is over here on the computer. She's reading all your questions. So if you have a question specific that you want us to answer on air, all caps question, or maybe a Q if you're typing fast, and that way Anna can see those really quickly and she'll call them out when there's a pause so that we can answer your questions right here online. So today I think that some of you may have already seen that we are making the Carnation. And the Carnation, I have to tell you, it's not my favorite flower. I used to be a florist, and when I would order my flowers, I would rarely get carnations unless somebody asked for them, and I don't know why. I just didn't feel an affinity for the carnation. But I have to tell you, making these paper carnations, I think I fell in love. There's something about them. They're really beautiful. They're delicate. They're such a great flower that you can add into a bouquet. Here I'm making, this is the middle of a carnation. So I'm actually really loving these carnations, and there's so much you can do with them. You can make them in pretty much any color. There's also ways that you can shift and change the color with dyes and with bleach, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So I wanted to kind of introduce the flower for you guys. This is a test. We're trying it this way one time, so we really want your feedback. We didn't give you the flower ahead of time. We thought, you know, this isn't really a type of live where you can do a make-along because we go pretty fast and you can always go back and review it. But if you prefer a make-along, if you prefer to have your tools and supplies list ahead of time and know exactly what we're making, let us know, because we're going to consider what works best for you guys and what, you know, I liked the anticipation of waiting, but let me know if that's good for you guys or if you would rather know ahead of time. So the Carnation is the flower today, and you know, you guys had been asking for it for a while. Quite a few people had been asking. I think we have a bigger crowd today, and I'm really excited about that. Anna shot off some numbers, and I was asking her to ask you guys, where are you from? Where are you watching from? Are you guys new at paper crafting with making flowers out of paper? Are you advanced? Let's kind of know your background a little bit, because we like to know where, you know, who we're speaking to and who the community is. So when I made this flower with you guys, this was, I believe, our September member make, and it was a lot of fun. And after we made this flower, I actually integrated it into some of the settings, the table settings that I did for fall and for holiday, and we did this flower in our Portland workshop. So if any of you were at the Portland workshop, do a little shout out so we can see, because you've made this. And what happened between the member make and the workshop is I actually figured out a better way to do the center. So we have actually filmed a new video for this flower. We'll be putting that up live in a few weeks, showing the technique that I felt was easier and a little more accessible. And that is the technique that I'm doing the Carnation with. So with that, this was my first Carnation, and I love the pink. It's so much fun. And you know, I've picked out colors today that I'm working with, but please feel free to work with whatever color makes your heart sing. So this was fun. This was my first one, and I love the big burst and it's a little bit gigantic. So I sized it down a bit, and here was my second one. And that one started to feel a little bit better. And then I started making all of them for the photo shoot. So that's kind of where we started. Anna, are there any questions yet? Do you want to do some?
Yes. We have some great questions. Thank you everybody for asking. We have a question what is your favorite flower?
Oh, okay. Yeah, and let me know if you can hear Anna. If you can't hear Anna, put it in the comments. She's over here, the microphone's over there, so we'll make sure that you guys can hear. So what is my favorite flower? Yeah, that is a hard one. That's kind of like which child is your favorite child? Luckily, I only have one child, so that's an easy answer. But flowers, I probably change my mind every month because the new flower I make is probably my favorite flower. So right now I would say the gardenia. I just made a paper flower gardenia plant. So I had made the gardenia earlier and I wanted to explore some more, and I made a plant. It's about this big, and it will be on our site on Monday. So you guys can look at that and download the pattern. And I didn't do a video for that one yet, but we might. So that's probably my favorite one right now. But what else, Anna?
I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody. We have 121 people watching now, and
Yes.
I think our biggest dedication goes to Marilyn, who's watching from her van as she's driving / moving her son to California.
Wow! Hello, Marilyn.
So thank you for joining us.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you.
One
So
of the other questions we had is, how do you know when you use heavyweight versus lightweight paper?
yes. So, in my book, Crepe Paper Flower book, I actually talked about that a bit, and we will be exploring more of that as we go throughout this year about, why would you use an extra fine versus a heavy versus a double-sided. So it really depends on the look you're getting, the delicateness of the petals. If you were making a big flower, you're going to want more weight to it, so you would use a heavy or a double-sided. So my book does talk about this a bit, and we will get into it. And today we're actually making this flower out of the extra fine, which is perfect for this because it has, exactly the delicateness we need, and because we ruffle it so much, it makes it work. Probably the best I've ever tried for this carnation. I probably wouldn't have tried it in heavy, it would be too heavy. But I wanted to throw this out here. You guys asked me what my favorite flower is. I want to know what your favorite flower is, and I want to remind you that whatever flower we do, so it seems like the trend right now for these member makes is crepe paper flowers. That's what people want, and we're open. Like if you want to do a felted project or an SVG cut file or something like that, I'm open to teaching that as well, and bringing that to the table as our member make. But in the meantime, what are you wanting? Give me a vote. If you want a paper flower, what paper flower would you like to see us do in February? I thought it was fun to do the carnation in January because it is the January flower, so that's kind of why I did it. So, all right, shall we get started? Let's get started with this. For my materials, I'm going to look at this in a second. For my materials, I have picked out the 4 different colors of crepe paper, and one of the great things about the book is that it has this great reference, and I'm wanting to make this into some sort of a visual poster that I can put on my wall so I can reference it really easily. So if I get that done, I'll share it with you guys as well. So I am using the aubergine, which is the darkest, the merlot, which is the mid-tone, and then the raspberry. And then I've picked out the juniper for the green. Now all of these colors are in the one pack, and Anna, you're gonna have to remind me the name of that pack. Which one is it? It's all garden, but I forget which garden. Do you remember what this is?
We have English garden,
This is not the English garden.
secret garden.
This is I don't know. Never mind. Maybe somebody can tell us. Yes, so I have those 4 colors that I'm using, and I made these flowers just out of the 2, and then today we're going to do the aubergine color as well. I have my wire. This is the 18 gauge paper covered wire, and you can use whatever wire you prefer. I'm using the wire in 2 different ways today, so you'll see me use it in a way you've never seen before. Then I have an exciting announcement. Well, first of all, let me tell you what I'm using. So I'm using these cotton spun balls, and this is a 14 millimeter and a 20 millimeter, okay? And these are cotton and paper. They're very eco-friendly. They're made in Germany, gorgeous. So here's the good news. These will be in our shop next week. We're so excited. So we have the 14 here. We have the 20, and you can see there's 24 of each balls. And then we have the 30, and this is for the larger flowers. And this one comes with 18. So I did put a link in the post on the site. So if you guys want to order these balls before we get them in our shop, I gave you a link to another vendor who carries them, and they're beautiful. I would stock up, absolutely. We are putting them in our shop just because we want it really convenient for you, but certainly buy them wherever you can find them. So I'm using one each of these for each of my carnations. Whoops. Okay, we have a jumper. I'll pull another one. So that's all the materials. It's really a very simple flower, and carnations don't really have leaves, so we're not doing leaves with this today. I use live leaves with this to create an arrangement. I think that's a great way to combine these. If you're not putting them in a bouquet, you can either, put your own crepe paper greenery or use some live greenery. So for my tools, I'm using just the regular craft scissors. I'm using the detail scissors, and you'll see why in a second. I am using the pinking shears, and these are great to have for many things. And then I will use the wire cutters briefly. And then we have the low temperature hot glue gun, and I believe that is it. So I'm not using these scissors today. Okay, and then we have our patterns. You guys can download these. We have them in SVG cut as well as the printable, but I'll tell you, it's such an easy cut, and most of the work that you'll be doing is handwork. So I would cut them by hand. I think it's really quite easy. All right. So once you have your patterns, I've already cut these out because I already cut out a set. I'm going to pick the darker color for this flower. So each flower has one color for the petals. Now, one of the things I want to challenge you guys with this month is give me some ideas, or play with your ideas of how to color. So one of the things I had been working on was this alcohol ink, and it works pretty good. I think that I wanted to get a blender and maybe use a paintbrush and see if I could mix it up a little bit, but let me show you what it looks like. This is really fun. This is a darker color. It's almost a purple, and you can just edge it, or you can also use a paintbrush. It almost seemed a little bit too dark, so that's why I wanted to try a blender. You can try that. Another thing you could try to do is use a bleach. Now, it's not 100%. You have to mix a little water in it and just dip it in. I haven't tried that yet. I've had other people say that they have. If you want to give it a go and let us know, share it with the community on how it worked for you, that would be awesome. Otherwise, you can just use the one color. It still looks really beautiful. So on this pattern here for the petals, I cut it off, and I'm actually going to fix that on the pattern. So if you want to download it again, I'll put this on the inside so it doesn't get cut off. And that's one side we're going to add a fold. Anna, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and I'll pause.
And we do have a couple of questions from new members, which are good beginner flowers.
Yes, this is a good beginner flower. This is actually quite perfect. It might look a little bit complicated, but it's not. And you'll see. As far as other beginner flowers, I would always, say the anemone, the double-sided anemone is good. So I'm going to show you really quick what I'm doing. So I have a mark for a fold, so I'm folding the whole length of it over. And I'm just using this pattern as more of a guide. And then I will go ahead and trim it all the way down. Now I designed this pattern to actually cut 4. And you'll notice the grain lines, so you'll want to make sure and go, you will not want to go this direction. It definitely needs to go this direction. So this is a time saver. I'll fold it a few times. It doesn't even need to be even. You'll want to make it even on the top and the bottom. And then just use this pattern as a guide. And I like my larger scissors for these. And you can just cut them all in a bunch. And that's one of the beauties of the extra fine crepe paper, is it's so light and delicate you can cut several layers at a time. I see a hand over there.
Yes, we have a question why you prefer crepe paper over cardstock.
Yes, so honestly, I don't even use cardstock for flowers ever, almost ever, once in a while we'll say. I love the crepe paper because it's so forgiving and it's great for the beginner. But I also love to use a frosted paper or a text weight paper, and you'll see a lot of that on our site as well. We actually have it listed under the frosted paper flowers. I don't use cardstock because it doesn't curl as well, and if you look at the flowers that I've made, they are very curled. That's one of my techniques, is curling with the curling tool. And cardstock just seems a bit rougher, so you don't get that delicate curl. But crepe paper is a perfect place for people to start. And not all crepe papers are the same. So what I'm using today is my own crepe paper. You can use what you have, but just know that they're not all the same. You just want to make sure you get a good quality if you want to use these flowers for something like a wedding. All right, so I'm just going to cut the inside piece. This is the center. Again, I'm cutting along the grain. You can actually fold this in half if you want to, or stack them if you're doing multiple flowers and cut. I would probably never cut one layer at a time just because it's not efficient. But since I'm just making the one flower right now, easy enough. And this is just a guide, so it doesn't have to be perfect. These ends will not even show. Okay, next question, Anna.
Yes. If you're already a member, are there any benefits, or do you need to purchase the book?
Oh, well, if you stand by, we might have a giveaway pretty soon. What was that? Did that cover the question?
Maybe.
Okay.
We have 151 people watching all the way from New Zealand, South Africa, West Indies, India,
That is
Canada.
amazing.
It's amazing.
That is amazing. So as far as purchasing the book, so if you are a member and you have the book, I mean, for me, if I'm involved with something, like right now, I just started an art class, and if the teacher had a book out, I would probably buy her book because I want to know all the knowledge that she has. I think both of them have the benefits. Both of them have, I like to have everything in one place. So that's where the book is really nice. And also just to thumb through it rather than be online. Some people prefer online, some people prefer paper. So it's really up to you. Not everything in the book has been shared on the site. So there's definitely some benefits to having the book. So, all right, now this piece right here, I'm basically cutting it the basic shape. Now you'll see some little markings in here that might be confusing, and I'll show you why I did it that way. Let's see here. So I'm gonna fold it in half, and then a third, and then back a third. Once I have it like this, easy enough, I'm just going to cut like a half circle on top, and then this will be right underneath the flower head, and then this comes down the stem, and I don't want all of this bulk, so I'll cut it as a V cut and just cut some of these bulk pieces off. So it will look something like this when I'm done. And it doesn't have to be exact or perfect. What I drew here on the pattern is just for your reference. So there you are, there's that piece. And then the last piece, which I think I lost it, so I'll just point it out here. The last piece is the second sepal, and I made a mistake here. It says cut 1, it's actually cut 3. I'll fix that and put it back up on the site so you guys can download it correctly. And this little piece, I've cut 3. They look like this. You want to cut them along the grain, and those will add that extra detail to the flower. All right, let's start making the flower. So here are the 2 balls. Now they are different than foam balls. We're trying this thing. We have this idea that we would like to go foam free in our studio. There's just something about styrofoam that makes me cringe every time I use it, and I feel like I need to find an alternative. So when I found these paper balls in Germany when we were there, Anna and I were there last year, and I had heard about them before, but I hadn't actually seen them up close. We have been trying for a year to find them and to get them into our shop, and we finally did it. And I love it because it's much more, sustainable and natural, just like the paper. What I'm doing right now is bending the tip of the wire back. I always like to do this to make sure that my flower heads stay on. Now I'm going to cut the wire. It's just long. I don't need the stem this long. So I'll go ahead and cut it. I have my little bend on the top. Then this little tiny ball, this would be the 14 millimeter. You'll notice that there's a hole on one side of these spun balls, but not on the other, which is lovely most of the time. But I'm going to take my little scissors and put the point right into that because we want to open that up. If you try to push the wire through without creating some sort of a hole, it actually bunches up. So I will slide that through, and you might see it happen here because I have quite a bit of wire. Okay, that's not going, so I'll go this way. Yeah, you can see how it starts to spin out a little bit because it's actually a spun cotton ball. I'll slide that up and then place some glue right into the hole of the larger ball. And this is the 20 millimeter. And then you can see some glue oozing out, and that will hold the second ball in place. Now, if you don't have these balls, you can also recreate this with either some toilet paper or some cotton, or you can try some of the looser foam balls, but these are just a really lovely way to do it. And then my next piece is this oval, and I'm just going to stretch it out. And I find, even though I'm going to cover this pretty well with other crepe paper, it's just nice to have it covered so none of the white will peek out. And my general way of doing this is I'll stretch it out, and you can see this is the non-stretch side with the grain. I'll glue those on first.
Okay, I wanted to just chime in really quick.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody. We just love to see this fantastic community of all of you chiming in on great tips on how to use bleach pens and other materials.
Yes, and we're going to go back and read those too.
And I just want to make sure they all know about our member Facebook group. It's a wonderful place for you guys to chat in between, and Leah chimes in when she can. If you're not on it, please join. We'll put a link in the notes of this post.
Yeah, so we have a private Facebook group, a member make group, where we encourage everyone to share their photos of what they created. So this is the lesson for the day. This is, January's flower. Everyone creates it and then posts it there on our Facebook group so we can see it. And then we can also share it on other social channels as well, and just let the world know what a great time we're having here creating flowers together. So I've stretched this over the top of the two balls, and then I've just pinched it and glued it to keep that in place, and that would be the base of my flower. You have anything else to say, Anna?
Yes, we have a questions about the spun paper balls.
Yes.
Can you shape them?
You can a little bit. They're not like foam in that you can crunch them, but if you go back to our olive post, we did the olive branch. Megan made that, and she took the balls and actually formed them a bit more into an olive shape, so they weren't quite so round, and that worked pretty well. They have somewhat of a glue coating on the outside. I don't know if it's glue, but it's a little bit harder. You can tell the inside's a bit softer, so that breaks down just a little bit. And they also come in different shapes. So we just bought a whole bunch of eggs that we're going to be using for Easter. They're so pretty. Okay, so I have my strips here, and all I need for each flower is 3 strips. You're gonna cut 4 out of the full length, and then you can save this one for another flower. I'm gonna do is fold it in half. And if any of you were there at the event, the Cricut event here in Portland, we did this part out of the heavy crepe paper, but we stretched it. So there is, to talk about the question that someone asked, when you choose heavy over extra fine. So because the heavy is so bulky, you can see right here, and I didn't want that bulk coming into this space, I stretched it first, which gave it about the same texture as the extra fine. But I felt for this flower, I didn't want to use the heavy and stretch it. I want to do it this way. But if you have heavy crepe paper and want to make this flower, try that technique where you cut the piece, you stretch it, and then you can cut it down to fit the length that I've requested for this flower. That would work as well. I just like having this extra crinkle in the crepe paper, so that's why I chose the fine for this one. All right, so I'm folding them in half like this. Then, easy enough, and I'm only gonna do one today just because I have 2 more done. Oh, here we are. All my tools are everywhere. Okay, easy enough. You take your pinking shears and just trim the edge. I love using pinking shears on flowers that have, I never really want a blunt edge, and if it's something like this where there's a lot of it, you don't want to hand cut this by hand, but you don't want to hand cut it, it would take forever. So using a pinking shear is a great method. Then once I've done that, trimmed my edge so that it has a bit more texture, I'll use the width of my thumb. I like to use my small scissors here, and I'll just clip all the way down. I'm leaving about, I would say, 1/4 inch on the end. You don't want to go too close. So just trim, Anna, you can shout out questions in between while I'm doing my busy work here.
Yes, a lot of people are asking where they can buy the crepe paper if they don't live in the US. So I do want to highlight that we are sold in Spotlight stores, which is in Australia and New Zealand.
Mhm.
I believe they also have a few stores in Singapore. We are on Crepe in the UK, so you can buy crepe paper on their website. We're also on Amazon, which I know ships international to Canada. And then we are working with a distributor and exhibiting in Frankfurt next week. So hopefully that means that we'll have some stores in Europe picking up our crepe paper.
Mhm. Oh, and isn't there one up in Denmark now?
Yes,
A store in Denmark?
we're working
Okay.
with an adorable little store in Denmark, so to serve the Scandinavian market.
Yes. So right now what I'm doing is I'm taking my small scissors and going in and trimming this edge. I'm doing one side first and then I'll flip it and do the other side. So basically I don't want a square petal. I want them to be rounded a bit. So I'm just clipping those quickly. And then I'll turn it over and go the other direction. And you can use your own method for this. You know, sometimes I noticed myself when I was making these flowers, I'd switch it up a bit. So I might, you know, cut, trim, trim, cut, trim, trim. Or you can do it all at once. One cut, one cut, one cut. So all three of these pieces will get this finish. And I've already finished two of them, so I don't have to. Okay, so it looks like this. Looks like I missed one. So it looks like this. All right, and I have three of those. Actually, I have two because I already put three on. I have to make one more. Okay. One more. Well, while I'm doing this, Anna, do you have any more things you want to talk about or questions to answer?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Annette in Denmark. She's the little shop that I just mentioned, and
Yes.
she said that she just received a nice product.
Yay!
And we are so thrilled to hear that. Thank you,
Yes.
Annette.
All right.
And then it's so I moved a little closer to Leah so that people could hear me a little better. So I just wanted to repeat the stores. So we have Spotlight that serves Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. We have Crepe and Craft in the UK. We have our wonderful store in Denmark. We are working with Walmart and Amazon for the North American market. And then we have our own shop on Leah Griffith that, where we're shipping within the US, working on international shipping. And we have a couple of questions regarding the wire you're using
Yes.
today.
Mhm. So the wire is the 18 gauge paper covered wire, and we have the link for that on the site in the post. We put links for everything in there so you can track it. I know it's a US, so if you're out of the US, you might have to do a little searching and digging. But this wire is actually, I believe the company that sells it's an Italian brand. They use it for cake making. The paper covered wire, I think, you know, to do flowers like fondant and frosting flowers, they use it for that. So I found it works amazing for flowers. Things glue better to the paper. If you don't have paper covered wire, you can use cloth covered wire or just regular floral wire. Because we will cover the wire. This is just my preference. It works better than anything I've found. But, you know, use what you have. You don't need to buy new things. Just use up what you have. I think that's always a good idea. All right, so there's three pieces. Do you have another question, Anna?
Yes. Valerie's wondering if we'll be posting the SVG of the pattern.
The SVG is up in the post. Yes, the PDF and the SVG are both in the post.
And then we had a question.
And if they're not, they're supposed to be, so we'll make sure it happens. Yes.
We had a question when you just started. How long was the piece of crepe that you have in your hand right now?
So the piece of crepe, I used this pattern, and on the pattern it says fold, and I'm going to fix that and put the fold mark on the inside. So when you cut it, it's still there, because oftentimes, you know, I'll keep these patterns in an envelope and use them again and again, so you don't have to keep cutting them out. So it's double the width. So I cut double the width, which would be about right here. I just cut it and then folded it up and then cut the height. So that's just a really easy way to do it. And remember, if you guys pop in a little bit late and you don't see some of the beginning, you can always go back and watch this again. This will stay on YouTube and you can watch it as many times as you want. All right, so what I'm doing, I just keep going and I forget to tell you what I'm doing. All right, so I have another wire here. This is the same wire. I like the heavier weight wire for this. So I'm going to place the fold right on top of the wire, or other way around, whichever. So it's sitting like this. Then carefully, I'm going to gather and use the wire as sort of my place to put pressure, so I can get a really nice fine, and it might fall off, that's okay, you can put it back on. You want this to be as tightly gathered as possible, so I'm pressing it all the way. There's no more space there. Press, 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 till it looks like this. Then I'll carefully slide it off, and I'm going to pinch it. Pinch the fold. Then when you open it up, it looks like this. And what a fun way to add a gather. It was so simple. Do that to all three. This is a good time to ask questions when I'm doing this.
Yes, so we have a question on what size ball you're using.
Yeah, so I used a 14 millimeter and a 20 millimeter. So there's two stacked.
All right, and I'm adding links to all of the stores that we just mentioned,
That would be great.
so
Yeah.
you'll find them in the comments.
Yeah. Oh, sometimes you have to kind of finagle this a bit, but it's worth it.
And then we have a question on your favorite color of crepe paper.
I think the favorite color kind of changes with seasons too. Right now, I'm loving these deep plums and burgundies. I think it's just kind of delicious, and it speaks to Valentine's Day really well. So,
And what trends are you seeing in the colors?
yeah. Well, in paper flowers, you know, we tend to go with natural colors versus, you know, kind of crazy colors. But I would say right now it is the darker colors. Although I love seeing the white on white tone as well. I just saw something the other day that was really inspiring, where they made this beautiful bouquet of flowers and everything was white. It was almost like a ghost, a ghost flower, because the leaves were white, everything. I thought that was a really fun trend, and it makes a great statement piece in your house. You know, one of the things that we're working on, Anna was in my first video with me earlier this week, if you guys want to go watch it, is we're talking more about practical uses. Once you make these flowers, okay, what can you do with them, and how can you use them to decorate your home or to create a beautiful wedding bouquet? So we're going to be doing a lot more of that. And again, throw out your ideas and your questions of what you want us to see, or what you want to see us do. There we go. Let's see if I can get my words straight. Okay, so there's my third one, and I'll just pinch it so we have all three there. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do to get this petals onto the center, I want to make sure I keep the wrinkles in my crepe paper. I don't want it to stretch out so much. If the gathering loosens up too much, your petals will stand straight up, and you really want them to fall open. So as I'm doing this, I'm sort of putting it back into the crinkle, and I'm just making this, wrapping it around itself. So you can see, can you guys see that? Is that too far away? So I'm basically just wrapping it around in a spiral, but I'm also making for sure that the wrinkles are in place. And then I'll hold that between my fingers, add a good amount of glue. I have another challenge for you guys. This has been on my mind this last week. Can anyone source some non-toxic glue sticks? I've been looking and I haven't found anything fabulous, but I bet you some of you have. So now I'm putting this right on top, And I'm using my fingers to hold it in place, and you'll want to be really gentle until it cools off. Another reason why I love using the low temperature hot glue gun is it cools faster and I can get my fingers in there without burning them. So here we go. We have a little hat on top of our guy. Then we'll just continue wrapping. I'll take my glue and just run a bead, maybe an inch, and then you just start placing those in there. You'll want to get it right into that crevice between the foam, or that it's not a foam ball anymore, the paper ball, the cotton spun ball, and the crepe paper. And you just keep going around with the two pieces. I found when I was making these carnations that I liked them better when I didn't over petal them, when I didn't have too many petals, because you do want to see it loose. You don't want to have it so compact. So as you do this, again, you want to make sure that you, need another glue stick. You want to make sure that the wrinkles of the gathering stay in the petals, but not as tight as the top. I'll show you a close up here in a second as soon as I get this on. So you just keep going around. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'll try to turn it around the other way. It's a little bit awkward. Okay. You can also go this direction if you want to. And you'll notice that the petals are kind of splaying out a bit more than I might want them in the end, and that's all right because I'll go back and press them into place. This is the problem with having scraps on my table where my glue gun goes, because they get on my glue gun. We're going to find a different method. Okay.
Talking about glue guns, which is your favorite glue gun?
Yeah, I tend to go with the Surebonder. I do prefer the low temperature. However, there are flowers and there are papers that I use a high temperature. I think the smaller glue guns I like better because the tips are smaller as well. We have links for our glue guns that we prefer, not ours, but the glue guns we prefer. So then this is my last piece. This is piece number 3. And I'll add that in. So part of my challenge this month too is make your crepe paper carnations and then do a bouquet. Show me what kind of bouquet you prefer. You can make, you go online and get inspired by what other people are doing with live carnations and recreate that. So I think the trick to putting these petals on is making for sure you allow enough time for it to cool before you fiddle with it. So right now I've almost created a whole pom-pom, but until it is cool, I don't really want to touch the petals. So I'm going to let it cool like this. I'll set it down for a minute. Or I might have a little base that I can stick that in. I love the silicone mat for the glue. However, the crepe paper kind of sticks to it, so it's hard to move it off. Maybe a brush would be nice. I can shake it out, but it's hard to brush off. Okay, this is probably cool enough. Now, I'll just use my fingers and just bend it back a bit. So it looks something more like this. Then you can go into your top and bring these petals out. If you feel like the top is a little bit too tall, you could always get your scissors in there and trim it up a bit. Notice how the petals fall. Sometimes they stack kind of one right on top of each other, and that actually is very realistic if you look at a carnation. They are not evenly rotated. Sometimes the petals are somewhat underneath each other. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is add this sepal, and this is sepal number 1. And my technique for this is I'll add just a bit of glue onto the one end, I'll turn my carnation over, and then I'm bending back the tip and placing it right onto the ball. So what I'm trying to do here is glue the solid piece around the base of the ball, but let these little arches splay out right underneath the bloom so that it kind of covers that transition between the petals and then the ball. So then I'm going to try and do this so you guys can see it. I'll rotate it and add just a titch of glue right here at the base, and then I'll move this around. And it's a really nice way to keep everything in place while you're doing this. And then we'll keep going until you get it all the way around. And if it's a little bit too short, you can stretch it. And I'm going to get my scissors in here to push this back. You can see what it looks like. So it looks like this. Can you see that? Okay. I have glue strings everywhere. The joy of a hot glue gun. Okay, then you can see all these little bits and pieces here. I'm just gonna gather those up. And one of the things that I didn't put on my pattern, but it's easy enough for you guys to do, is I'll oftentimes, if I want everything to match really well and have a smooth transition, I will use crepe paper as my stem tape. So I'm just gonna trim, I would say about 1/2 inch wide. Maybe do a couple here just so I have some extras for my next flower. Sometimes if I know this is going to show, I might make a tip. And then I'll place that, let me do it first and then I'll turn it around so you guys can see it. So I'm placing that right at the edge and then wrapping it around. And this makes a really nice transition, and I'm tightening it as I go so that it pulls all of those extra pieces in, and I'm going to add a little glue and just keep going. You'll just want to make sure and stretch it a bit as you move it down the stem.
All right, so I have a question. Can you do this flower with cardstock?
No, absolutely not. The cardstock would not ruffle. You would not be able to take a cardstock and press it together on the stem like I did. You might be able to find a cardstock version of a carnation. I haven't done one, but I'm sure there's some out there. So I've made this tape go about down to here, and I'll go ahead and go over it again once I'm done with another layer. So here's my 3 last pieces, and you can use a curling tool if you want to, or you can just use your fingers. Here's my curling tool, but I'm going to give it just a little bit of a kick. You can also use the edge of your scissors. So it has just a bit of a curl and the tiniest bit of glue so that it doesn't peek through. And this is where you can go in and cover up. Say you accidentally got a piece of glue onto, the top. You can cover it up with these. If you look at a carnation, they have these little tiny pieces coming out of the stem, and oftentimes they'll be moving down the stem like this. You can add as many as you want to. I suggested 3, but it's your call. And then the last one. Then from here down, I'll go ahead and do more of the taping and finish that flower. And I'm just going to show you how I do this. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, it could be a little bit flatter on top. Sometimes if you're making carnations, you might make the one piece, you might take the one folded piece, knowing that it will be your top piece. Make sure you mark it. Wanting it a bit flatter, rather than cutting right on the edge, you might give it a bit more room, and that will make you a bit, make it a little bit shorter on the top. But you can go in here if you want to. Give a little haircut. I wouldn't recommend this. I like the other version better, but this is an option. Or if you see, a place that didn't get glued down as much as you wanted to and you can't get back in there and glue it, you can just trim it like this as well. That looks so pretty. All right. I'm going to finish the stem, and Anna's going to throw out any more questions we
Yes.
have.
Can we see some more close-ups of the back and the sides?
Yes.
And then we have a Cricket question. How do you change the cut lines to score? And I don't know if that's part of their new update.
Yes, it is. So I would really, I'm going to encourage everybody to ask questions that pertain to this class. And since there are no score lines, so let's save that one for later. But I will just say it's an update, and that's something we're actually learning because they just changed it. So we have to educate ourselves before we tell everybody.
Yeah, and unfortunately we didn't know about it either until we noticed it.
Yeah, but yeah, let's try to keep this class about crepe paper flowers. We would love to do a class on Cricut, especially the Cricut maker. So if you guys want that, vote for it, and we can answer all your Cricut questions. Okay, I'm going to show you the back of this. I have a little bit of glue here that I'm not liking so much, so I'd probably add in another sepal to cover that. But here's what it looks like. Can you see that? Can we get it closer?
Yeah, so we had somebody ask why we didn't use an overhead camera. Unfortunately, because it's a live, we can only use one camera at a time.
Yeah.
But we will add close-up photos to the post.
We can. Yeah, so lives are a little bit limited. The nice thing about lives is you guys can ask questions, and we're right here with each other. When we shoot our other tutorial videos, we get to use 2 or 3 cameras, and that way we can get close then. But anyhow, so any other questions on the flower? I'm excited to see what you guys create this month, and give me your votes for next month of what you want to see. So
yeah, we have a couple of contenders that have come in. We've heard peony, Juliet Rose, Birth of Paradise, violets. We also had a Cricut maker request, a class on a Cricut maker.
yes, I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
If we can get the votes for that.
And then
yes.
we have a question on the flower. Do you wrap the paper covered stems?
I do sometimes. The thing that I like about the paper covered stems is you don't always have to wrap them. I would probably trim this or finish wrapping it, but because I wanted the stem to be a bit thicker to simulate what a carnation looks like, I went ahead and added some crepe paper. You can also use tape if you want to. Since I wanted the color to be very much the same, I used the crepe paper as my crepe tape rather than the waxed crepe tape. Yes. All right, I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have more questions, make sure, or if you're watching this after the live, go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll work on getting those answered for you. And we will make sure and have all the links that you need for this flower, and we look forward to seeing you and seeing what you make. So thank you, and we'll see you next month.